Okay, may I have everyone's attention? It's great to see everyone here. My name is Greg Enos, and I'm going to try and attempt to be your master of ceremonies today, but the emphasis is not with me for sure. We want to welcome all of you. I know some of you, and I am looking forward to meeting those of you who I don't know. It's a joy to have you here. You're going to see a lot more of this facility that you've come to through the conversation that we have for the next 90 minutes. And then following our conversation, for those of you who are able to stay, we're going to have a tour of the manufacturing footprint here and other facets for what goes on here at Purposeful Design. So we're glad you're here, and if you can stay after the main event, we would love to show you around, and David would be more than happy to answer questions from you as we proceed. Well, as I said, my name is Greg Enos. I have the privilege of representing Citizen 7 Indianapolis today that is helping put this together in conjunction with our three partners that you'll be hearing about today. Citizen 7 is just a bunch of guys. We aren't a 501c3. We aren't an organization of sorts with administrative overhead. We're just guys that love our city. And our mission, in fact, is to build this city. In fact, now we're thinking, how do we rebuild our city, given the pandemic and all the downstream effects of that? How do we build our city by connecting with each other as friends, making strangers into friends, seeing that happen, and we have some wonderful things that have happened there, but not just networking or friendship. It is what happens, what ventures, what initiatives, what work to build our city can be spawned and generated by connecting each other as friends. And so our vision is really to see Jesus' love in all the neighborhoods and families that are looking for a new way to be alive. We're going to see we're going to participate today in some aspects of our city that you may not be aware of. In fact, we've held similar convenings of men and women over the past few years in an actual bus. And we called this a virtual urban tour because normally you would be sitting 2 by 2 in a bus driving around urban Indianapolis. We've done that a couple of times. We've had a great time doing that, and the thought was, how do we capture that in this time of COVID and pandemic and do something similar with social distancing? And that's why we're here. But if it was up to me, I would have had these chairs 2 by 2 all the way back to the end so that we could really replicate what goes on in a bus. So that's the feel that we're going to try to create today as we see where Jesus' love is permeating our city as we drive through in a virtual fashion various neighborhoods. Now, I don't know how many of you have read Lord of the Rings. I have to confess, I've read half of that very thick book. You may have seen some of the movies. J.R. Tolkien wrote it, of course, and Sam Gamgee had this memorable quote. He said, "There's some good in this world, and it's worth fighting for." That's what we're about today. In this time of bad news everywhere, bad news in the media, we feel it, it's palpable, suffering that even our own families entertain. We're looking and we're fighting for what is good in the world, and we hope to expose that today. But Citizen 7, as well as our partners here today, believe that that good is worth fighting for. My friend Andy Crouch wrote a book called Culture Making, and he makes 3 points up here. How do you change what's around you, your built environment around you? And he says, first of all, that you have to persuade your neighbors that you're going to do something different, that something new is going to happen. As my friend has often told me, the beatings will continue until morale improves. No, that's not how you shape your environment. That's not how you shape lives. That's not how God does it. He doesn't beat us up until morale improves. But we have to be thinking about what does it mean to see life afresh and live life afresh. Andy goes on to say that it happens through networks, but it's not a matter of networking. So communities are formed by which one can see something, a new possibility, a new hope. So communities are formed, but in particular, Andy says in closing, that it's what happens in these communities is a relatively small group of people whose common life is ordered by love. And that's really what we want to experience today. Love for each other and learning to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. So as you drive in the bus today, you're going to see where people are shedding Jesus' love in the cracks and in the gaps and in our city. Now, we are located on Indy's near side. There are 3 ministries that we're going to see who are collaborating together in this neighborhood. Up top is Purposeful Design and Heart Change. North of us is Brookside Park, the beautiful park that's northmost on the map there. And then south of us is Shepherd. If you see this vertical segment here, the big neighborhood that if we were to go south to Shepherd Community Center, it's all known as Tuxedo Park. But you know what I bet right now? No one's wearing a tuxedo in Tuxedo Park. That's the name of the neighborhood. I don't know why they named it that, but the point is that we're going to be taking a slice of Indy's Near East Side and traveling virtually to see where the good is that's worth fighting for. I do want to mention this broader map. If this is successful, this is our first time at a COVID pandemic virtual bus tour. If we're successful, we'd like to replicate this across the city to show the city what is good, what is true, and what is beautiful. And so what we're starting here on the east side, we've had a number of people help us in Citizen 7. Laura Davis, Don Palmer gave us access to his executive assistant who's helped put this together. And the reason I mention that is that we're just a bunch of volunteers. No one gets paid in Citizen 7. We're us. You're Citizen 7 if you're on the mailing list. If you want to be on the mailing list, let me know. No dues, no obligation, but that's what we do. And Don volunteered Laura to help put this together. That's how we help spread the love into the city. So this is a few of the aspects that I just want to briefly show you as we drive through this Tuxedo Park area with these 3 ministries. First of all, housing. In this neighborhood, about a third of housing is abandoned, and less than a third is where the residents actually are homeowners. So mostly rental properties in this area. So if we look again at health, human health here, of course, we're all sort of looking at, boy, how's the world changing with this pandemic and our health? But folks in this neighborhood are at particular risk given some of the risk factors here. A lot of people smoke, asthma, lacking health insurance for care once they are sick, or even preventive care. So as you can imagine, in a neighborhood that is poverty-stricken, I'll go to the next slide here, where poverty is replete throughout this swath that we're looking at in the Near East Side. Median household income at the 3rd percentile. 20% of the population are single women with children in this neighborhood. And then part and parcel with poverty is education. You know, I was here with David. I actually teach here in our discipleship class. And I don't know, David, if you remember this, but one time I was back in the conference room, and you'll find out more about who David hires here. But these are guys from the neighborhood and beyond. I asked them, how many kids in this neighborhood have the chance to eat a meal once in a while with both their mom and dad around the table? Do you know what their answer was? There was some guessing, but they coalesced on 10 to 15%. 1 out of 10. 1 out of 10 kids in this neighborhood gets to sit down and have a meal with both mom and dad. That's where we are in our city here. Now, with respect to education, when I saw the 2019 I-STEP results last year, that's the standardized test, of course, in Indiana, this pie chart represents all the township schools throughout Marion County, Indianapolis. The school system here in Tuxedo Park is IPS. It's second from the bottom. This question was posed: how many black students in Marion County passed at whatever grade level they were tested, whether it's 3rd grade, 8th grade, etc., passed both the math and English proficiency, both? Everybody here in Marion County, every number here is less than 20%. I live in Pike Township. It doesn't even approach 20%. But in IPS for Center Township, 1 out of every 33 kids, 3%, passed both math and English proficiency. That's last year. Are people concerned about that? You bet they are. I know Alicia Johnson, the new superintendent of IPS, is, and she's doing a great job trying to pull it up. But parents are concerned. Kids are concerned. We all should be concerned. When 1 out of 33 black students in Center Township, IPS, passes and is proficient at math and English. So, education. Last but not least, public safety. We want to walk streets that are safe. We want to live in homes that are safe. We want to go to work through safe passage. And public safety is big, and we're going to be hearing more from an IMPD policeman here today about what it's like to live and work in the neighborhood here. But there's a lot to improve relative to public safety. Now, why do I mention these facets of where we are? It's because they all work together to either lift up or suppress human flourishing in Center Township. Well, today, since we're looking for the good and we're going to fight for it, we have the chance to meet some folks who are engaged here in the city that are seeking to lift families and lift children not only out of their own poverty, but to spawn the next generation, to break free from intergenerational poverty. So it's not just a handout today, but it's passed on from generation to generation, and where our city gets rebuilt. Now, what we are going to do is we're going to pass out, later on, we're going to pass out pieces of paper so you can ask questions. We're going to have a panel discussion here, or we can take them live from the audience too. But we want to make sure that as you're going through our bus tour now, as we embark, as we turn the bus on and we take off to the neighborhoods, that you think about any questions you might have. And like I said, there's a tour afterwards where you can ask more questions as well. So with that, we're going to start with Shepherd Community Center. I've known Jay Height, the leader of Shepherd Community, for a number of years. It's this November, they're celebrating their 35th year of existence here in our city. Praise God for that. And we're just delighted now as we hop on the bus. We're going to go meet one of their leaders, Andrew Green, as he talks with some of the folks that have been impacted by Shepherd Community Center.
Shepherd is effective because of relationships. You know, it's easy to look at a lot of different programs and to think programs make a difference. But we know from 35 years of experience that relationships make a difference. Relationships is where the impact happens and what is effective.
Shepherd works with both the first and second generation to break the cycle of poverty. It's a two-gen approach to say we want to help the parents and the students in a long-term commitment through a continuum of care to help them have the tools for them to break the cycle of poverty.
When you think about breaking the cycle in the second generation, there's a quote that it's easier to raise a child than it is to repair an adult.
Rutgers University recently did a study that said the greatest way that you can help children deal with the economic discrepancy that exists today in America is to help them start into school well, that early childhood is essential.
The academic and the educational experience is a challenge, and there's about a 30% graduation rate in our neighborhood. And so when you think about that, what a huge step to graduate high school. What a even bigger step to go on to college.
It's not just one age group or it's not just one program, but a collection of programs that we put together in a continuum that addresses the academic, emotional, physical, and spiritual needs. Built on a foundation in Jesus Christ, we have this step ladder that allows folks to move themselves up out of poverty into a life of upward stability.
Our school on site, we have kindergarten through 5th grade. And we do after school and summer programs here. We have our main food distributions happen out of this location. All these different opportunities to connect with kids and families. And so our programs are designed that way.
The core issue is loneliness and lack of hope. And so we talk in terms of paraclete, the Greek word for the Holy Spirit, but it also means the one who comes alongside to help carry the load. And we want every one of our neighbors to have a paraclete at Shepherd.
I love the mission of Shepherd, that we get to walk alongside kids and families to help them break the cycle of poverty on the Near East Side of Indianapolis.
Programs are excuses for us to make relationships. In this world, we don't need more programs. We need to know that more people care for us.
Since we're on this bus, we're actually in the neighborhood now, and we have Andrew Green out in the field who's going to be interviewing one of those women who's been impacted by Shepherd. Please take a listen.
Thanks, Greg. Carla, it's great to be with you today. Thanks for joining us.
No, my pleasure. It's always great to be here.
Well, we really appreciate it. And would you mind just sharing a little bit about your family?
Yes, my family, we consist of 6, and we are originally from Houston, Texas. We moved here in August of 2016, so it's been 4 years now, and we have adapted or kind of grown towards Shepherd. We got initiated here, and my kids have developed strong relationships with them.
Yeah.
And we're just happy to be part of Shepherd.
Yeah. Well, we love having you guys here and a little closer these days. But
Yes.
how has how these last 6 months obviously been really difficult across the country, across the world? But how about for you guys?
Wow, 6 months. Yeah, it's gone by pretty fast, but it was very difficult at first and very overwhelming. We didn't know what we were going to do. It was just very uncertain times. Scary at times as well, because we, we don't have immediate family here. So we didn't know how it was going to play out. There was a lot of rumors. So we just took it day by day. And it grew even more overwhelming when our landlord at the time, he just all of a sudden told us that we had to move out of the house that we were renting.
Oh my goodness.
And without having anywhere else to go, nobody else was renting at the time because of, the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were going to do. So Shepherd offered a rental to us, and we're so grateful and blessed to be nearby.
Yeah, it's really great to have you guys there, and like you said, really close here,
Yes.
within walking distance,
Yes.
which is nice. Yeah. How have your kids been as far as just getting involved in programs? Does that help them when during a difficult time like this?
They're glad to be back in school. I mean, it's not the same as before COVID, but at least they get to see their friends at a distance and see the staff. They really miss the teachers and everybody here. So it's an adjustment, but they're happy to be back.
Yeah. Well, we missed you guys and missed having them around here for sure. Yes. It was very quiet in the building. But no, it's really, really great to have them back. How about you and your husband as far as just work opportunities? How's that gone for you guys?
Well, during COVID, I was laid off twice. And my husband has been getting work here and there. He does subcontracting work, so he's been getting work here and there. I'm currently working for a insurance company and pursuing my state's license through
Awesome.
through this company.
Very cool. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And how about just you have a little one, right? Is he in program right now? Or
Yes,
anything?
he's actually attending the daycare center, Mini Hartman,
Awesome.
that was just opened as school started, and he absolutely loves it there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
Well, I know I think I've seen him over there, you dropping him off there, and love seeing your girls come in here, and actually your son get dropped off from Horizon,
Yes,
right?
yes. He also comes here to get picked up to go to Horizon. Yeah, he's
awesome.
in high school.
Very cool. Well, again, it's been great having you as a part of the family here. Like you said, even though you don't have your immediate family, we love having you guys, and I've just really appreciated how you have jumped in to serve in so many different ways around Shepherd too, and give your input and feedback, and we've really appreciated it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you for
We
having
really
me.
appreciate it. Back to you, Greg.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Andrew. Heart Change is a ministry we're going to hear about now. My friend and David Palmer's wife, Cindy, is going to tell us a little bit about this fantastic venture that's truly changing hearts and lives.
It was the Lord's idea to start Heart Change. He gave me really a picture of something while I was serving at life centers and seeing women who were interested in a relationship with God, wanted to return to Him, were curious about Him, but didn't have anyone in their lives to help them move that forward. The tagline is, discipleship for women and their young children, come discover the woman God created you to be. And I think that's true. I think every woman who comes, whether they come as someone working with children, as a driver, a lunch person, or a woman that we'd say is being served, we're all being served by the gospel. We are all discovering the woman that God created us to be.
I felt like I had already been through a change, but I needed something more. I needed relationship with it because they taught me and mentored me, and they gave me a job, actually. It was called the gift of work, and it truly was a gift because I learned a new skill. I know how to make soap from scratch. That's something I didn't know before. And I learned how to do the spelting pen, which is something I've never done, and then I became really good at it.
Was kind of feeling like, oh, it's 30 minutes to get to any of my friends, my Heart Change friends, 30 minutes to come back. So it's almost like the clock starts ticking before you've even gotten to spend time with a woman and her children. And so he just started planting this idea of what if you lived as a neighbor and you could just walk across the street and they could sit on your porch and you could do life organically and not have to worry about the clock ticking and blocking it out on your schedule.
I love the fact that we are all in community and that we do things together, and they're not across town. Like, I can just witness it right here in the neighborhood, and when we get together and do things, like, we share what's going on in our lives. It's changed me in a way. I'm more open to people, which before I was closed off because I didn't trust anybody. And it's changed me because I'm more trusting, speak more, I'm more friendly, not standoffish. And I think the Lord has changed me in those ways.
You saw those candles being made. You're each going to take one home. Those candles are made with a lot of love. And Cindy's actually out in the field now talking with someone who's really been impacted by Heart Change, so we want to listen in on that conversation.
Thanks, Greg. I'm here in the Brookside neighborhood in what we call the Covenant Community Neighbors neighborhood. I'm standing outside one of the Covenant Community houses, and I'm with my friend and neighbor and past graduate of Heart Change Ministries programs, Alicia Bell. And Alicia, thanks for taking a walk around the neighborhood with me and for this opportunity just for us to testify to the things that God has done. I appreciate you being willing to do that.
Yeah, no problem.
Why don't you, since the people listening don't know you yet, you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your family and who you are.
Okay. My name is Alicia Bell, and I have a husband. His name is Zachary Bell. I have 5 children, 2 boys and 3 girls.
And about I'm trying to think, how long have we been friends? How long have we known each other? What year did you come to Heart Change? Roughly.
Okay. 2012, I think, is when I came to Heart Change, because Crystal is 7. Yeah, so I think it was 2012.
Awesome.
It's about 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. The time goes so fast.
Yes, it does.
And you've been living in the Covenant Community neighborhood for about 4
4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Great. Well, we've been on a journey together. The Lord's been changing you, the Lord's been changing me. And I just think it'd be fun to kind of reflect back, maybe 2 or 3 words or thoughts about when you came to Heart Change. How would you describe life for you in that moment, and what brought you there to begin with?
Okay. So initially what brought me to Heart Change was I was at the Crisis Pregnancy Center to receive diapers and prenatal assistance while I was pregnant, and someone gave me a flyer. At the time, I did not have my high school diploma, and I really didn't know a lot about God, so I decided to contact Heart Change and go through the facility and figure out that this was a good place for me and my kids to be, and just the love that we experienced when we got there, even though we didn't know anyone, and the kids were really happy to be there. It just made it a lot easier to transition into trying to be an adult and receiving my GED.
That's awesome. And how would you describe kind of who God was to you in that moment when you walked in those doors, if he was anything to you?
So I would say I knew about God, but I didn't really understand what it all meant. I honestly felt like it was for people when they got older to kind of tap into, when they were a little bit more settled after you kind of were able to do the things that you wanted to do in life. And then when you got married, then you kind of went to church and just kind of did that. So God was a distant thought from my mind, if I thought at all, on a daily.
And so you started coming, you kept coming, and what, I don't know if you can remember exactly, but, you know, sort of when did the awakening of this idea that Jesus loved you and was pursuing you, when did that all start, and what were you hearing that was changing that for you?
So we were initially talking about a lesson about adultery and sin and what that looks like when it comes to God. Just not a physical sin of the flesh, but it's a sin to have any gods before him, first and foremost. So ultimately, the thing that God was pressing heavy on my heart was sex outside of marriage. And that's when I knew that, I needed to stop, because it was something that was everywhere. I could hear God telling me about it. I could experience it in my interactions with other individuals. So I went to Sarah Shaw and kind of talked to her about it. And then I went to Hayek, and Hayek prayed with me. And she told me that God could deliver me from my sin of the flesh, and that I would be made new. And that's kind of when everything changed for me.
Such an awesome story. One of the things I love about you is watching you in class, you're always thinking very deeply. And you're one of those people that it seems like once you commit to something, you really commit to it. Mm-hmm. This is real, and this is going to direct your life. I know that you would say that a lot of things changed for your family as a result of the change that was going on inside of you. Do you want to share about that at all?
Yeah, so a lot changed for my kids if I realized that I need to change, and that God is the most important thing in not only my life, but all of our lives. So initially, it was just something that I needed to start to really have my kids change as well. I wanted them to start to go to church with me. I changed the music that we listened to, the shows that we watched. And it just allowed them, I feel like, to be a little bit freer, to kind of slow down and just be kids and not be so worried about everything that's going on. And with that, I was interested in the Oaks Academy when you brought it to me, and the whole idea of a Christian education was very appealing, because it's very hard to get even myself and a child to understand what God really means to them if you're the only person pouring into that person. So the school really helped kind of tie everything together and kind of just create this picture that they could see that, oh, well, other kids my age are learning about God too, and it's okay. So it made it really good.
That's awesome. So you flew through you went to Mothers University and graduated. You flew through your GED and got your GED. And then you became one of the very first women to enter the gift of work.
Yes.
And you had work experience before, but how would you describe if that experience did anything for you that you reflect on that was valuable? What was that, if there was anything?
There was a lot of experiences with the first opportunity. For one, this was a Christian-based work opportunity. So initially, we prayed during lunch, we had a little bit of Bible study, we kept the conversations as wholesome as we could, because everyone around in the work opportunity was kind of all pointed toward the same thing and the same goal. So that was one of the things that was a little different for me, but ultimately it helped me go from being a stay-at-home mom to entering into the work field. Yes, you can be organized and punctual and all that at home with your children, but it's a little different when you're in a work setting. So it just helped me refine organizational skills, be as on time as I possibly can, and just, be accountable. And with that, I was able to kind of move up a little bit and do extra jobs and just assist other women that came in that needed to know the techniques. So that's kind of what it was for me.
Yeah. You showed a lot of leadership skills during that time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then you had the opportunity to move into this community. And we're standing outside another one of the Heart Change, the Covenant Community houses right now. And that's a big decision on a lot of regards. And there are goals for Covenant Community, but just share about your experience moving into the community. Has this been a good decision, and if so, why? And what do you think are the fruits of being here versus somewhere else, if at all?
Yeah. So initially, when you decide to give your life to Christ and you want to change the way you live, it's kind of hard to do that, I would say, if you're going back to an environment that is toxic not only for yourself and your children. So the fact that this was an opportunity for me to have my kids outside and be safe, other individuals would watch them. The whole community feel is, I felt like, what I needed in that moment to kind of help myself and my family hold tight on to what God was trying to tell us and not let us kind of like easily stray away. And the experience overall has been really, really good. For when our houses, our first initial home that we moved into, it was still beautiful and very nice. And I feel like the way that the houses are refurbished, so to speak, or reconstructed for the families, anyone, no matter where they come from, would feel happy to live in the home and experience what was in the neighborhood as well. I don't feel like it's like some of the other homes. They still look nice on the outside, but just the inside isn't kept up well. So the fact that like the maintenance is on time, you can trust who your landlord is, makes it all that and more for me and my family.
And you've made a contribution to the community. It's not just the Covenant community neighbors, but I know that you have impacted neighbors who were here and their children by loving them and not giving up on them and really trying to reach out to them. How would you say it's affected your children to be here?
It's affected my older boys the most. I would say my girls are still pretty small. So with them, I know who they're playing with. Their mom knows me. They feel safe in their community, in their area. And they don't feel like I'm going to go outside and some other kids are going to walk by that I don't know and it's going to be kind of weird. Even though there's other neighbors within our Covenant community, the kids are still good. They still have genuine friendships and relationships that I feel like will hopefully be lifelong, because it's really helping them as of right now just be here and feel safe and be grounded somewhere.
I wonder if that has something to do with the light that you are in the community with those kids. So, I guess the last thing I'd ask you is just, is there just anything that you feel like you'd like to share about your journey through Heart Change, your ongoing relationships now as a graduate with other graduates? Is there anything else that you would want to share? There may not be, but I just...
Well, I mean, definitely. I would just say the relationships that I established with my neighbors and my Heart Change moms, I feel like are lifelong, genuine relationships. I know that they're there for me. I know that they're praying for me and my family. I'm praying for them as well. So just the whole feel of the community, the women, just everything. I don't feel like I'm any less than you and you're any more than me, because we're on the equal playing field. We both live in the same community. My house is just as nice as yours. It's not anything like that. So it's just I like people to do things with dignity the same way that they want it to be done to them. And I feel like that's what you've been able to do to me and so many other moms who would not have been able to receive a home to this standard for just the rent that they pay each month. So that is a blessing in itself. Yeah.
All right, could I ask you one more question?
Sure.
I just thought about it, you said that. In light of all that's going on with the Black Lives Matter movements, the protests, the dialogues that are going on in social media, what impact, if any, does living here affect the relationship to that social discourse? What about for this neighborhood for you and your family?
So for me and my family, it really doesn't affect us where we live at all, because they still go outside and they're not treated any different. Everyone in the community still cares about them, loves them, treats them the same way. But in the midst of it, like in the thick of the Black Lives Matter movement, all the stuff that was going on, you had Summer Learning Lab and Art in the Park, which made the kids have to come out, mix and interact with one another, which helped, I feel like, a lot of the isolation issues that they were feeling, because it was everywhere. And they're Black, so it affects them in a different way. And I felt like all the women that were out here over the summer, pouring into the children, pouring into their spirits, speaking God's word into them, whether they heard it from home or not, really helped, I feel like, the kids that benefited from this program over the summer just kind of get over all this stuff. Like, it really made an impact for me, for Terrence and the girls, more than anything, because we were in quarantine. How else are they going to interact with any other kids or any other thing? So it was all done really safe, and it was just a really good experience for my kids. So,
well, it was a great experience for me too, to be with them all summer and those who were here teaching. And thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I just love seeing how God has wooed you, pursued you, just as He's wooed me and pursued me, and we get to do it together, and we get to study God's Word together, and it is, like you said, for life, and that's the beauty of it. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
We're finding some good, aren't we? We're going to fight for it. That was beautiful. A lot of good's going on. Well, we're going to watch one more video, and then we're going to go live real here with some real live people up front besides myself. And with that, I'd like to introduce via video my dear friend David Palmer and Purposeful Design.
I remember one of our craftsmen once saying that I was a lot like this rough piece of wood. I was pretty rough around the edges, and God sanded me down and He put me back on the shelf. And I think the men, as they're working with the rough wood, they see themselves in the process, the rough spots, the irregularities, and the opportunity to be finished by the Lord. Purposeful Design is really the result of a simple prayer. I went to Wheeler Mission weekly to help lead Bible studies, and I met with men, and I would often ask how they're doing. And so often the answer was, I'm looking for a job. So I decided I'd ask the Lord about this no job thing.
This place is like no other. It's like the people are cool. They don't badmouth if you make a mistake or whatnot. They just want you to learn from it.
I think that Purposeful Design works because there's something about working shoulder to shoulder in close relationships, sweating with each other. The people behind me are the individuals who have been craftsmen here at Purposeful Design. We've had about 135 since we were founded.
Here we have fellowship every day on our first break, and that just is a constant reminder of just staying in the Word and try to be a good person. Try to be like Jesus.
Since I've been here, I've realized that God does have something for me. And countless nights where I was laying thinking that this was it, praying to God just to get me through, and He answered them. I realize now that He's definitely got something for me. I am definitely impressed. These tables are high end. And I mean, even when I'm telling people at the mission I stay at, like, I tell them it's like, man, I make some of the best furniture that you'll ever see.
One of our customers has reported to us that they have 4 quality tiers that they put all their suppliers into. And they've told us that they have no supplier that's in a higher quality tier than we are. One of our craftsmen once put it this way, that this place has got to be more than just a safety net for us. It's got to be a springboard for us to go out and help other people.
This place has been a lifesaver for me. God ultimately saved my life, but this place has shown me a way in life other than what I've known, so I'm glad I found a home here.
Wow. Purposeful Design is shaping people's lives one table at a time. You'll find these tables at Lilly locally, Salesforce, maybe Cummins, and maybe one table or two will find its way into your office as well. You can talk to David afterwards for that. With that, I'd like to bring up David Palmer. He's here with us, and he's going to interview one of the employees here who's vital to the supply chain for Purposeful Design. So, Jesse, come on up, and I'll turn it over to you, Brother David.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Jesse. You may have seen Jesse in the movie. You know how much culture of, do I need that? Okay. How much of a culture is shaped by maybe sometimes a few people that are there. And here at Purposeful Design, Jesse is one of our culture shapers, for sure. Some of you may have met him, and you know what I'm talking about. He makes a significant impact. His steadiness, his dependability, his laugh. He can throw a hug on you like almost nobody else, too.
If you're blessed enough.
And so we really appreciate Jesse being here. He's our longest term craftsman here as well. He's graduated to a supervisory role. Really has a significant impact. He's got a great life story, and I wanted to ask a few questions of Jesse. Could you go back in time a bit, where you grew up, and maybe tell about some of your childhood and youth experiences and where you found yourself?
Sure. All right, so throughout my life, I grew up in Utah. I don't know if any of you have ever been there before, but it's a beautiful state. But I ended up not being in the most perfect state. But growing up, I had good parents. They taught me right from wrong. They taught me good decisions, bad decisions, and what that could do to you throughout life. Throughout all of those, they taught me not to do drugs, not to do alcohol. When they said that, I decided that's what I wanted to do because they said, don't do that. So as a rebellious child, I did so. And through that, I become an alcoholic. I become a drug addict, which I am no longer, by the way. I am no longer a drug addict. I am no longer an alcoholic. I don't think about that. I don't want that in my life anymore. But throughout that, as I was growing up, like I said, I had good parents, right from wrong, but just bad decisions took me into the wrong positions, wrong people, wrong places, everything like that.
Thanks, Jesse. How did you find your way to Indianapolis?
All the wrong ways. I met a woman, and I ended up just getting into it with her, and I ended up in prison because of it. And when I got out of prison, I had nowhere to go, so I ended up at Wheeler Mission.
And what was it like at Wheeler Mission?
It's not the greatest place to be, but it's not the worst place to be. I mean, they give you a place to sleep, they feed you, they let you shower, they clean you up, and then they also disciple you. And so that's the plus about it is,
Did you experience any life change at Wheeler Mission?
Well, first of all, yes. Because I was homeless. I had nowhere to go. So the life change was, here, you can come here. Which was, you can come here, you could do whatever we ask you to do, and then like I said, I mean, it was a life change, yes. I mean, because, I mean, I had God growing up, but I fell away and did what I wanted to do. And again, like over and over and over again, I always, what I wanted to do instead of what God wanted me to do. And
Jesse talked about being homeless, and one day I went to the tallest tower in our city here, and I was speaking with a businessman who was up in the tower, and he was admiring the furniture that was there, and he knew where it had come from. It had come from Purposeful Design, and he was remarking how beautiful it was. And he said this, he said, "Isn't it cool that the beautiful furniture in this office tower was made by men who used to be homeless in front of the tower?" And I was moved by that. I thought, yeah, thanks for saying that. That hits it. And I came back and I shared that with Jesse, just kind of off the cuff, and he looked down for a minute, and he looked up with a big smile, and he said, yes, I was homeless in front of that building before, and he had since become a supervisor here at Purposeful Design making the furniture. Could you comment on how you found your way to Purposeful Design, and what's this been like here?
Yes. I actually, the first time I ever met you was at Wheeler Mission, and you were explaining this place and what it was and how much of an experiment it was. And I mean, growing up, like, I mean, through that experiment with you, like, I mean, I mean, Andrew Gibson, I know you know who he is. A lot of you don't know who Andrew Gibson is, but he was my mentor through the old shop, and he's the one that actually mentioned to David that I should come and work here, and David pursued me through Andrew Gibson. And so I was blessed with some opportunity to not volunteer some time, but give a little bit of my time building Christmas trees when I first started. And so that's how I was introduced to Purposeful Design, was just a little bit of help.
And what's it been like for you being here at Purposeful Design?
My goodness, I am blessed. I am. I know how blessed I am. Like, there's not another job like this. Like, this place it's a ministry before it's a job. So it's like, you think Jesus, Jesus, Jesus just pounds on you and pounds on you. I mean, you've got to get something from that, you know, so it's a blessing.
What are some of the challenges that you see some of the other craftsmen dealing with, struggling with, that come through Purposeful Design?
Right now or past?
Throughout time, across.
I mean, shoot, I mean, we've had a lot of guys decide that they weren't quite ready to be clean and sober, and then they weren't quite ready to quit drinking, and throughout that process, it's, I mean, we minister to them all day long, saying, you know, we give them every decision that they've ever been taught before. We give it right back to them again and pound it back into them, thinking, I mean, maybe something will grab onto you and hold on to you a little bit longer than the alcohol or the drugs. And so,
can you tell about your family, your current family?
I've got an awesome family. I've got a beautiful wife. My wife's name is Deborah. I've been married to her for 3.5, almost 4 years, and I have a 5-year-old son, and just his name's Kanan, and they're just beautiful people. I love them, and I will do everything for them. So.
Yeah, great. All right, Jesse, do you have any dreams for Purposeful Design or wishes? I don't know if we've talked about that before, but
actually, that's a hard question.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I would love to see this place expand bigger. Maybe start another company, not another company, but start another business somewhere else. Somewhere, I mean, it just depends. I mean, the possibilities are endless with Purposeful Design, honestly. I mean, we've got so many people praying and thinking about this place and trying to figure out the best solution for everything. And I mean, we're blessed for that. Like, people volunteer so much time for us. You know, it's not just, a lot of the people don't get paid. They volunteer. And it's like, it's amazing, you know? I mean, people from your church, David, College Park, I mean, they donate so much. And because of the donations, we're able to keep moving forward with what we're doing, regardless if we're making a profit or not. We're able to cover expenses, and because of those people, and it helps everything that I'm growing into. Because, like you said, I mean, when I first started, all I knew how to do was read a tape measure. and I've worked my way into a supervisor role. And that is building everything. I teach these guys to do what I used to do, and I work with them all day long to make sure that it is pristine and that it is whole and that it is everything that it's supposed to be, and even better than what it was when I first started. And they're teaching me, I mean, we've got guys in there that are teaching me the same thing, that it's not as good as it used to be, it's better than it used to be. So I have to pick up myself a lot more and pay a lot more attention to what everything's going on. So
good. Thanks, Jesse. Just to close, so you heard Jesse say that I invited him here, and that's true. And not too long ago, Jesse invited me to his church for a special worship night. And I went, and it was a phenomenal, his church is fantastic, really worshiping at the foot of the cross, worshiping Jesus. And it was pretty cool to think that I once invited him here, and now he's leading his family and taking his family to church, and he's inviting other people to go there with him. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, David.
Love you.
Thanks, David.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we're going to take a look at the other side. We are fortunate to have Officer Adam Perkins here with us from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. He works with Shepherd Community Center, and he is here to describe what it's like on the other side as he works with those in the neighborhood and as he is a portal into the services that Shepherd and other ministries provide here. So Adam, please come on up and share with us briefly about how you see things.
Well, howdy. Thank you all for being here and spending your evening with us. As they said, I'm Adam Perkins, IMPD officer working out of Shepherd Community Center in a special project that's been going on 5.5 years now, I believe. I'm truly blessed to be where I'm at and to be able to do law enforcement the way I think it needs to be done. So, been active in the neighborhood, searching for opportunities to work with folks that are slipping through the cracks and maybe needing a little extra help up. Turn on the news, you see an epidemic of gun violence and drugs and all of that's going on, but the real epidemic is loneliness. And I'm afforded the opportunity to build relationships with folks that wouldn't normally have an interaction with somebody like me that is positive. And a lot of work gets done sitting on front porches and going out to a lunch or just dropping by the house every once in a while and working through issues. Obviously, we live in a neighborhood plagued with poverty, and what I have learned is poverty restricts one's ability to advocate and navigate for themselves. Yes, there's resources out there. Yes, there's programs out there. But beyond signing up for disability or food stamps, how do I navigate towards these things? There's not a lot of resources to come alongside you. We have found that everything is transactional, and we're trying to convert the transactional to relational, and we're seeing a lot of success when we can get to that point.
Great. Adam, would you share with us maybe an experience you've had, either recent or past, where you saw significant things happen that you were pleased about and like to see that replicated throughout the neighborhood?
We don't limit at all the time commitment to any one individual in the neighborhood. And some of the relationships that we've had have gone on for the entire time we've been out working, 4.5, 5 years. And, you know, some of those are, you know, banging our heads against the wall sometimes with individuals that just don't get it. But it's exciting when you see kind of the light bulb come on and you see an individual who realizes that there's more for them in this world than maybe they thought they could reach on their own. We dealt with a gal early on who was plaguing the 911 system with constant calls, which is a jumping off point for us. a lot of our jumping off point tends to be those folks that are calling all the time, and we're treating that overutilization of 911 as a symptom to a bigger problem. And that was her story. When we encountered her, she had called, I think 16 times so far that month, and 5 of those were in the 3 days preceding us meeting with her, and she had abdominal pain and other things going on, and ultimately her diagnosis was something that could be treated with simple over-the-counter medication, but without anybody there to come alongside and kind of tell her how things work, show her how things work. She didn't have health insurance, so we worked on that. She didn't have access to transportation, a huge barrier in this community. So she couldn't make appointments that we would make for her. So how do we qualify her for a program that's going to include transportation for her? Those are extremely hard things to navigate. My partner and I am partnered with an IEMS paramedic. We ride together all the time. Both of us are educated, and we have a hard time navigating some of these systems. So we set that up for her, and just over the course of a couple weeks of working with her, things were getting better. So maybe we'd stop by a little less often, but we'd drop a phone call to her. And we called her one day, and she said, "I can't talk right now." I said, "Okay." She said, "I'm in the dental chair." She had the light bulb moment come on where she realized that she could kind of champion her own health to the point that beyond just normal care, now she's looking at things like dental care. And she had scheduled that appointment herself, and she had got the transportation herself. And fast forward a little while longer with her, we realized that maybe she was using some of her medications a little bit too much. And she called us scared one day because she had run out of hers and she had taken something that somebody else had provided her. And we realized that for maybe the first time ever, we were on the front side of an addiction that we could kind of jump on quickly and head off before it got really bad. And so we communicated with our doctors and communicated with her and kind of set her on a better path. So that's kind of one of those situations where we see a light bulb come on and somebody's now, because they feel empowered by a relationship, the light bulb comes on to kind of advocate and navigate for themselves. Our business cards are currency. We'll see them on people's refrigerators all the time. It will be the only card that they own, but they keep it on the refrigerator because they have our personal cell phone number. And they finally have someone that they can reach out to with whatever the crisis is, and we'll at least be there to help them get through it, if not find answers pretty quick.
Thank you so much, Officer Perkins.
Let's lift it up for Officer Perkins. Thank you. Appreciate it. Where else do you find an officer's business card on people's refrigerators? The future of policing. So thank you for that. Well, we're hopefully going to take your questions. Hopefully you've had a chance to write them down. If we have time, we'll take some from the audience. But I'm going to invite those who've been out in the field live. Cindy Palmer, and is Andrew back there too? Okay, yep. Andrew, come on up, and we're going to have a full panel discussion with a little bit of Q&A, and then we'll be winding up our evening. We hope you leave with a candle that's been made from Heart Change. And as I mentioned, we're having a tour for those that would like to stay for a bit, and David will bring us up, will lead us through some of what we haven't been able to see today. So, Cindy and Andrew, it's good to see you back from outside. Hopefully the weather was pretty good out there. Okay, fantastic. Well, I have a couple of questions here. Pete, you're going to collect more questions from folks too, so just pass them down the aisle if you have some questions written down, and we'll get this kick-started here. First of all, thanks so much for what you're doing here in the Brookside, Tuxedo Park, East Washington Street neighborhood. It's been a joy to know you personally, but also to see the impact of your work here in the community and to meet those by the live stream folks that you're actually in relationship with. That's such a beautiful thing. First question, we have is just, in particular, what is your vision for moving people from intergenerational poverty, and how do you see that happening where there's so many starts and stops with that huge issue? How do you see yourself fitting in with seeing the next generation coming along, and then the next generation beyond my time, for sure, here on this planet, moving into a life of health and flourishing?
Maybe I could give a quick story.
Sure.
Alicia, who's the woman that Cindy interviewed on the street, her husband works here. His name is Zach. His picture's up there on the wall. He's been here 2 years, and when he came here a couple of years ago, he said that he was 30 years old and that he had not been sober a day in his life since he was 14. And I don't know exactly how to process that, but that's what he said. And he's stopped all of his former vices, and he is one of our most trusted, dependable workers, doing a fantastic job. And one of the things that we've seen, I'm sure that we've all seen, is that when you're addicted and doing things that are hurtful to other people, those other people eventually say enough, and you find yourself isolated. And he lived with his family, 5 little kids and Alicia, but he lived in his bedroom. They didn't want to be with him, and he didn't want to be with them. And now, so he was an isolated man because he'd burned all of his relational bridges. Now he's got this family, but he also now lives with his family. And it's not unusual to see him walking his children to the neighborhood park, which may seem to a lot of us like, well, that's pretty commonplace, but it wasn't for him. And so that's that intergenerational thing. His family, his kids now have a dad that's learning to love them well and provide for them.
Fantastic. Any other thoughts, Cindy or Andrea, with what you're seeing?
Well, Andrew can speak to this better than me, but as far as what we see is the women, when they come in the door to Heart Change, usually come in hungry for change, but they don't really know what change looks like because everyone around them is living the same way they are, so they don't have a picture or a vision. And there's that verse, without a vision, the people perish. And so for us, it's as a woman grows herself, she begins to get a vision for her life that's very different than the one she had coming in the door. And as she gets a vision for herself and starts achieving goals, and usually that first goal is graduating from Mother's University, she starts thinking she can set more goals. Well, now she is getting a vision also for her children. And so an example would be Alicia got her GED with us, but her oldest son is a freshman at Purdue Polytechnic, and she's making steps and plans to make sure that those boys are going to college. And she's thinking about that, and what do I need to be doing now to make sure they're going to college? So that's a big shift right there. So when a woman gets a vision and gets hope, then suddenly now her children are going to have a vision and a hope for the future.
Thank you.
I think also I know all 3 ministries think a lot about relationships, and you heard that in probably all of the videos, and thinking about how poverty impacts really every area of someone's life. And so for us, programs mean long-term relationships. And when, Greg, you talked about how it can kind of come and go, and they can come in and out of your life, or they can have really high points and really low points. And it's about long-term relationships where you see you invest and they invest in changes, and they find hope in Christ ultimately, but they find hope in a lot of other ways as well, and they find it from a 2-generational approach, and looking at how we all have an opportunity to interact with both kids and parents. And sometimes parents are making choices thinking about their kids, like Cindy mentioned, how exciting that is. And other times it's a child learning, and maybe they'll be the first one to graduate high school. Maybe they'll be the first one to graduate college, and make choices then that their kids will see. I know there's a family that's been involved in Shepherd programs, and they actually have, I think it's 11 kids now. And their oldest kid is in college right now, and he's the first one to go to college in that family. And just to think about, not only, yes, for him it's huge, but he has 10 brothers and sisters that are seeing
someone move from high school into college. He's going to graduate college. He's probably going to go on into the film industry, and how exciting that is and what an example that sets. And so we see that in the context of long-term relationships and those kind of things.
Fantastic. Hey, we have a few questions. Thank you. I'm going to pose a few. These are not rehearsed because they came from the audience here. For anyone, what is the biggest obstacle your venture, your ministry faces over the next few years that is on your radar that you're seeking to work through and overcome to achieve success, your ministry's
One of the things
objective?
we're working with right now and developing a vision for is that we have this nice big facility, plenty of room, and we've kind of honed a bit some of our training procedures and shepherding procedures. And so we're seeing that as demand for our furniture grows, folks are coming off the street, out of the missions, and so forth. So we're working on growing demand for our furniture. So we've launched a thing we call PD, Purposeful Design Partners, and asking some of our major customers like Lilly and One America and the airport, others, to consider us not just in a vendor lane with them, but in a partner lane, and how might they, not for my good because it goes in my pocket or anybody else's good, but for the good of the city, how might they work to view us as a partner and maximize their purchases from us to increase that demand and reduce the supply of people that are on the street, basically. So that's a need for just more demand for our product.
Okay, demand side right out here.
There we go.
Okay. And Andrew or Cindy?
I could just add, COVID obviously has impacted a lot of families negatively, and one of the biggest things that we see, obviously at some point here soon, the medical side of COVID will get under control, likely, but the economic impact to families will take a long time. So part of that, which these guys have great options as part of work, get to work they talk a lot about, is for a lot of our families looking at longer term, what does some retraining in employment look like for our neighbors? And so that's something that we're talking about now. The jobs are going to look different for our neighbors than what they've been doing historically, and so that's a big one that we're thinking about in the coming years, and one that we'll bring on a staff person at the end of the month or the beginning of next month, kind of specifically dedicated to looking at employment and job training and what our partners will look like as far as when we think about how to help our neighbors retool and retrain for what the employment world will look like for them in the coming years.
Well, one of our biggest challenges right now is that we have a lot of things we want to do. We're not content with a GED anymore. We want them to have a high school, a true diploma, because the GED is becoming less valuable. Our CNA training program is nice, but it's still a really low wage. We want to keep stepping things up, and our goal is always our highest and best possible outcomes for our families, just like we would do for our own children, our own daughters. But we're limited sometimes because we have been, what do you call us? Wanderers. We've moved 10 times in 14 years. And so there are things we don't do because we don't have a permanent facility. So we've been praying and looking and searching, and we're kind of waiting on that permanent home. But maybe that's not what God has for us, and maybe it's not His timing. But getting settled so that we're not anticipating the next move is a big obstacle for us. And then we have a whole pipeline of things. Another big obstacle is because of COVID, our major sales channels have been shut down. Big events like Penrod and Decorator Show House and Holiday Mart and those things. So we're quickly trying to become really astute in online sales, but it's really hard to replace a $7,000 a day event online continuously. So we're learning though, and God's providing, and that's a challenge, not an obstacle. It's an opportunity.
That's beautiful. We have a couple of questions that are related, and in particular for Heart Change and for Purposeful Design, as you develop a revenue stream based on the products you make, manufacture, and sell. Anyone can talk to this, but what's your business model? What % of expenses are covered by your product revenue line? And how are people paid? I'm going to look at all this together. Think about that and maybe share a little bit. David, why don't we start with you?
I'll throw out real fast. This has been really fun for me. I come from the business world. This has been much more a walk of faith for me than just a pure strategic play. We try and think smart and work hard, but it's really, I'm loving it being a walk of faith. I'm trying to follow the Lord instead of lead him. I'm not so good at leading him. For the last 4 years, have been really fortunate. We've covered over 90% of our operating expenses with sales of the things that the men themselves make. Our men start at $10 an hour. At 90 days, if they're still with us, they make 11. Our highest paid individual is 20 an hour, and our average is 15.
Fantastic. Cindy, anything with your model?
So our model's a little different, I guess. From the beginning, we said we want this to be a self-sustaining enterprise. We don't want it to be subsidized. So our price point covers wages, raw materials, packaging, marketing, but we are volunteer-led. So management is unpaid, you might say. The brains behind the soap making, she's a volunteer. The marketing and sales director is a volunteer. And we know that probably down the road, we're going to be limited in our ability to grow. And at first we weren't even sure how much demand there could be, but we've proven the demand, and we see opportunities to grow, so that will be something we'll be looking at down the road. But right now we operate in the black, probably not this year because we won't have the sales opportunities, but we had some cash on hand so we can still pay people. But we've grown very slowly because we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves in paying people to work and having to figure out how to fundraise to pay them. So that's kind of our business model, I guess. Free management and paid, but we don't pay as well as you do. Our goal was never really to keep women there long term, but to prepare them to be successful at work in the broader marketplace. And we're really excited about the metrics because everyone who has, we would consider, successfully done gift of work and gone on to the broader marketplace, no one has been fired. We haven't had one firing. And women have held jobs for multiple years. And most of the time, the women that we're working with have never even gotten to a performance review. They've worked 6 weeks here, 2 months there, their childcare fell apart, their relationships were in drama, their transportation was unreliable, they didn't get along with their boss, they got involved in drama on the job, were fired, So those are the things we're teaching, and they fail with us, and then they're ready to be successful. And but we have seen, because we can grow it now, we have Tia, who you saw in the video, is a supervisor. She's training this next batch of new trainees. And we're really excited about that. She's a great employee. So we do have some longer term positions, and we do need to grow their incomes because they are the primary providers for their families. But during training, they start at minimum wage, and as soon as they successfully complete that about 6 weeks, they go up to $8 an hour and then up to $9 an hour. And I think our highest paid is $10.50. And we don't have we haven't figured that out quite yet. But they're making ends meet with the hours they get to work, so it's a little different.
That is fantastic.
We would like to get a lot higher, but we do everything by hand because we want to employ people. We will never have scalable efficiencies, so that makes it a little tricky. We're always walking that line.
So no robots?
No robots, no machines.
That's great. David, why don't you speak to your guys and gals, I assume too, a few gals I've seen here as employees. How many stay here versus train for jobs, as Cindy mentioned, out on the outside?
Well, our philosophy has become that we invite men, we only employ men, just for the purity of that focus. But we invite men to come in for a long walk rather than a short walk. And the reason for that is twofold. One is that we've learned that the folks that we're targeting actually could benefit from a long walk. Like a 17-year heroin addict, there are a lot of old habits that need to be done away with, a lot of new habits that need to be formed, a lot of old relationships need to go away, new relationships come in. So we found that for their good, a long walk is really helpful. And then the other thing is that we're attempting to be a viable, self-sufficient business enterprise. And for us to please the likes of Lilly or One America or community health networks, that we need to be able to deliver a product that's the right quality and on time at the right price. And if we lose our talent too quickly, it's hard to do that. So a long walk is the way we think about it.
That's beautiful. Now for all three of you, another question, and that was a nice segue. How many full-time staff or full-time equivalents that are paid at the ministries versus volunteers? Andrew, why don't we start with you on that? Just give us a feel for what that looks like, your human capital.
Sure. So Shepherd has about 60 employees across all the work that we're doing. And then we have well over 1,000 volunteers that are a part of the ministry throughout the year in different capacities. Some of those obviously less than others, and some of those regular weekly volunteers in some cases. And that can look like tutoring, that can look like food distributions, food pantry, any number of opportunities like that. But that's, we love our volunteers as well.
Cindy.
We're kind of teeny tiny. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time paid employees. And then we have about 90 what I'd call high engagement volunteers who are teaching classes, who are there once a week or more often. We have some volunteers who are there 2 and 3 times a week. And that's teaching, driving, the children's teaching team, working under certified teachers who are our paid staff. Then we have lunch teams, and we don't count them. There's hundreds of them, small groups and women's groups who bring us our lunches every day. But about 94 highly engaged volunteers.
We have around 40 or 50 volunteers, and most of those help with our school. It's called the School of Woodworking and Discipleship. And then about probably 8 FTEs, 6 or 7 or 8.
That's right, but I do know that as you grow your market and things get back to normal, you'd like to hire more employees.
Right, and that doesn't include our craftsmen, so that was more the administrative side.
How many craftsmen?
Until a couple weeks ago, we had 16, now we have 10. Scaled back, reflecting the demand for sales right now for product.
Right. Final question. There's 3 individual not-for-profits, and many not-for-profits I know are fighting each other for some of the limited pie of revenue they think is out there. Do you guys work together in this neighborhood? And if so, just share briefly how you guys have worked together with one common cause to spread the love of Jesus into folks' lives.
We do work together. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to say, yes, we do work together, and we love these guys and partnering with them.
Same.
Specifically for David, we've had folks, and I saw one of our neighbors here working right now. So a friend of mine, David, a different David. And so we've sent people here that are a part who are employed here, as well as another neat way that we've partnered together is that we do work with middle school and high school students as well, and they've created aspect of their School of Woodworking and Discipleship that works with middle school and high school students. And so we've had a couple of summer classes that have come through that way as well, a neat way that we partner together, as well as we've worked together on some various, meeting some basic needs, especially as of late around food-related items where there's times we can help each other out, and as well as we opened a new child care facility recently. And a way that we connect on something like that is to be able to share, and I know they'll help spread the word about neighbors that might have a need like that. So lots of conversation and partnership that we really appreciate.
Mm-hmm. It's a good summary.
That's really great. I would say we love the partnerships on 2 levels very much. These guys, Shepherd has really been a good sounding board, a learning board when ideas and they've traveled the path. They're 35 years, we're 15 years, so, and that's been really, really great. But then the mom, young children team came over and looked at what we were doing, so some exchange of information there, which is wonderful. But mostly we've been the beneficiaries of your help. And then with PD, I mean, some of our most beautiful success stories are these. There are 5 men working who came to PD through their relationship with a Heart Change woman. And then the bloom that's been for that family or those families has just been amazing. And then the other day, they rescued us. PD came over and helped us with our big move into our latest temporary facility. I don't know why I thought we women could do it. So it was a miracle, so I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Anything to add, or did Andrew summarize? That's good. That's beautiful. Isn't that powerful? Where people are working together, connecting with each other, and loving a community, and not in a condescending way, but as they've mentioned, you've seen throughout, with their peers, with their friends. We're all one in this. And we're hoping that this vision that's been cast for you on this bus ride, which we're about to disembark from right now, has been really an encouraging time for you. We'd love for you to stay around if you can, because David's going to give a tour, as I said, back here, but also get to know some of these folks. We can have follow-up afterwards as you see fit. I do want to note that Citizen 7, as I mentioned at the outset, is a volunteer organization. We're just guys that love this city. And we're open-handed, and right now there's about 330 guys on the mailing list. If you are here in Indy and you're a builder, you're a maker, you're a lover of people different from you, you want to just be who you are fully, come let me know, and we'll make sure you get on the mailing list, because we have a lot of stuff going on. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you a bit about those who are helping coordinate our Citizen 7 network. Jackson Troxel back here leads our media and communications and marketing help, and Pete Watson right here is our Chief Operations Officer of sort. We all give ourselves these titles, but we're just doing everything. And so we're just sort of coordinating, we're catalyzing this network. Again, we don't have any paid staff or anything, we're just doing this to connect people. We do have a few upcoming events that you can find out more. We have a wonderful fella coming online on the 8th to share with us about how we should prioritize our priorities. And we're in the midst that we're going to be embarking on a year-end high-impact generosity campaign of finance. And we have almost 20 guys who've said, I'm willing to be a lead donor for a particular organization, ministry, or venture here in this city. And then Citizen 7 is just going to say, here's one of your friends, lead donor, do you want to help him out? And hopefully we'll double, triple, quadruple those lead gifts in the city. We do more things like that. In particular, though, we want to thank you all for your time. We've been live casting this to many people out in the virtual world through our Citizen 7 social media channel, so we want to thank you all for your attention there. And with that, I'd like to hand the microphone over to Don Palmer, who co-founded this with me way back in the day, but Don's been my inspiration and support. And Don, share some of your thoughts in closing. Thank you, and then close us with a prayer and blessing for everybody.
I've been taught as a Presbyterian that brevity is a virtue, so I'll be very succinct in my comments. But several of us have knew P.E. McAllister, and he died at the age of 101. And I was asking him about his philosophy, and he said, honor God, help your friends, and adore your city. And I think that you can see here, all these folk are trying to adore their city. And the more that we can do to love the place that we've been all so fortunate to do business and have families and have people educated. So I'll close this with a brief word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we would ask you to give us greater gratitude, that you'd help us see the selfishness in our own lives and give us eyes that see and ears that hear the needs of our neighbors, and how in our own businesses, our own vocations, or just our stewardship of time and talent, that we might serve others. Amen.
Amen.
If you want to do the tour, meet me out this door, and we'll take a 5-minute tour. No pressure.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Courtney in back. Thanks to Mike Evans for the screen and the projector. And with that, you are dismissed. I think there's a few more snacks and things. Restrooms are right over here to your right. So.